James Lupton here with the Slothboxx team. Paul, Zan on Lyndon, Dixon, guys, how we doing?
Yeah, we're good,
How are
mate.
you?
All good, guys, all good. Just saying there, another crazy day in boxing. Conor Benn has failed a drugs test in his fight coming up with Chris Eubank Jr. It's only come to light today on the Wednesday of fight week. However, it seems that it's been known for a few weeks. Maybe that's why Chris Eubank's been eating all this chicken and burgers, because he's not going to be making a weight. That may have been removed from the stipulations of the contract. First of all, Paul, we'll start with you. What are your immediate thoughts and reaction to the news?
Yeah, I mean, when it dropped today, I was actually driving to a prison in Swindon to deliver a session with a light heavyweight boxer, Charlie Duffield. And we were having a conversation on the phone with Luca Rosi, who obviously you know very well. And as we're chatting with him, he goes, "Fucking hell, guys." He said, "It's just dropped." So I went, "What?" He goes, "The news about Conor Benn." I went, "What news?" And he suddenly spilled the beans about he's failed a drugs test. So all of a sudden it was like, wow. So anyway, come back and then you catch up on the social media. And it's interesting. It's a real, there's a blend of, how can I put it? It's a total bullshit and shitstorm all rolled into one at the moment. It's very messy. And what I mean by that is that the bullshit side of things in terms of, say, Eddie Hearn, because he's all sorts of videos been surfacing at the moment, his views on VADA and WADA in terms of the past. And now he's basically saying, "Oh, we'll get the lawyers to do everything they can do to try and make this work with the British Boxing Board of Control." Well, if he's failed a drugs test, he's failed a drugs test. End of story. Dillian Whyte failed a drugs test drinking a fizzy drink from a corner shop and got a 2-year ban. So if they make this fight happen just because it's going to furnish the financial coffers of promoters and other interested parties in there, then that is complete and utter crap. It really is.
Definitely. I mean, Lyndon, for yourself, obviously, they're talking now. The British Board of Control have come out and said they do not want this fight to go ahead. So the promoters and Eddie Hearn have turned around and said, "Okay, well, we'll find someone else to essentially sanction it." They're looking at the Luxembourg side of things again, who done the David Hay and Derek Chisora after their altercation back in 2012, 2011, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Lyndon, what are your thoughts on this? And does it make a mockery of the sport that they're just turning around and going to another board?
Definitely, I definitely think it makes a mockery of British sport. I think, a tweet or a video earlier, and it was the fact that British boxing needed this fight with the whole shenanigans of Fury and Joshua over the past few weeks. I think this would have been quite a bright moment for British boxing. Well, look, these two can get it on. Do you know what I mean? But I've been, obviously, we've all been seeing a lot today. But one thing, there's not much to agree with Eddie Hearn at the minute. But one thing I definitely agree with, he said that the British Boxing Board of Control have known about it for about 2 weeks. But it's today, only today, after the Daily Mail article, where they've made their stance firm that they don't want it to go ahead. So for me, it's all a bit like Paul said, it's a bit of a shitstorm at the minute. But the fan in me wants it to go ahead just because I want to see the fight. But at the same time, Paul put it perfectly. You failed a drug test. You failed a drug test. There's plenty of other fighters in the past that have, and they've been banned. And I think Conor should follow suit. I don't care if it's a little thing or if it's an accident. He's failed it at the end of the day. And if his performance is going to be enhanced because of a slip up, it's not. The responsibility should lay with him.
Absolutely, Paul. I mean, in terms of you mentioned it's going to, potentially going to go ahead due to financial gain. Conor Benn ultimately has failed a drugs test. A lot of people we've seen have been banned, like Lyndon says here. Why should certain people, i.e. Canelo, Oscar Valdez, we've seen these guys recently who have failed tests and been able to continue to fight. Why can certain people fight down to really what seems like a financial gain / popularity contest?
I think when you go stateside, and you've got 50 different states, and each one has a different sort of sanctioning body to a better extent, it's quite easy to sort of do a hop and a skip and suddenly end up in a zone where you can keep the fight going. I mean, back in the days with Mike Tyson, when he fought Lennox, I think it moved states like 5 times before they finally agreed on a venue. But on the British Isles here, you've got the British Boxing Board of Control. That's it. That's where the buck stops. You don't like it, then yeah, bring in the guys from Luxembourg to do it. But I think with 24 hours or say 72 hours notice, it's going to be quite fine. The British Boxing Board of Control are doing the right thing here, because if they decide to let it go ahead, it's their integrity that's at stake. but also something goes wrong, then they will have their asses sued beyond belief. And they have been stung heavily in the past when there's been injuries of some sort. I mean, the Michael Watson case pretty much made them go bust. So at the moment, as a comparison to a Canelo type situation, firstly, a lot of interested promoters wanting to make it happen who know that they can get it sanctioned in 1,000,001 other places. They could have gone to Mexico, they could have gone to one of the other states, and it would have definitely happened. But we are a very small population comparatively and geographically. So I think the British Boxing Board of Control, Mr. Smith, will always have the deciding vote. As in comparison, I think it's just being annoying today that Eddie Hearn hasn't kind of said, kind of been a little bit more Switzerland about it. Talk about Luxembourg, being a little bit more Switzerland, a little bit more neutral about it, and say we need to find out more about it. I mean, at the moment, am I right to think it's a female hormone drug or something of some sort? I don't know. What the fuck is that? Excuse me, but I mean, seriously. And in terms of a reputation, I mean, fucking hell, Conor Benn must be thinking, you want to be caught with a tougher drug, at least say they caught him with a bong in his hand or, a load of coke or something in his system, but a bloody female drug. What the fuck has gone on there, So how did that get in his blood? It's not like that suddenly that slips into your milkshake and you swallow that one. So anyway, I'm all ears to and eyes to see how the story's going to unfold. The raw facts, whether they actually surface. But in the meantime, I hold very little hope for the fight happening. When Lyndon was saying as a fan, yeah, I would love to see it. I really would. All the hype. I was having this discussion with Charlie Duffield today. I genuinely believe that Chris Eubank Jr. was going to make the weight comfortably, walks around at about 12.3 to come down to 11.6. He's been doing for years, and to come to 11.3, I think with he walks around like a piece of marble. He's hardly got any fat in him, and I think the 3 pounds, yes, would be tough, but I think he could make it. And all this crap of showing him eating donuts and slices of meat, and I guarantee you, 2 minutes later, he'll be in the Kazi with the fingers down his throat. He'll make weight. Don't worry about that. But in the meantime, it's looking like it's not going to happen. So another big sigh.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned there it was a female drug, so it's a fertility drug. However, if it's taken by a male, it boosts testosterone. I saw another report that apparently it is something that is taken to reduce the side effects of steroids. How true this is, I do not know. However, it could make sense. Has he taken steroids, feels that's out of his cycle, and slipped up by not worrying about this drug? Has that come out of his cycle yet? Who knows? Obviously, only Conor Benn or his team will know. Could it be a case of his team have advised him, right, you need to have this, and this in terms of your supplements, your nutrition, etc., and he's not got a clue what he's taking? If that is the case, Lyndon, does he need to be more careful? He's an elite athlete. There's guys who look, and I know people who go to shops and they check every single ingredient on the packet before they buy something. Does Conor Benn need to take a bit more responsibility in what he's doing if that is the case?
100%. I think, like he made his statement today at the public workout. He went on the mic next to Chris Lloyd and said he said he hasn't failed a drugs test, which is weird because he has. I don't know why he said that. And he also said that he's never put a foot wrong. He's always been clean, blah, blah, blah. Well, like you said, I think he needs to start asking questions because you have failed a drug test and the B sample will come back the same because it's the same piss, mate. Nothing's going to change about that. It's you just need to get a grip on the situation and just admit it. This is what, as all boxing fans, it's just the shenanigans. Just be straight. Just be honest with us. There's plenty of boxers that are taking a lot worse stuff. Don't get me wrong, but you need to, like you say, get a grip, take some responsibility of what you've done, and I think he owes the public an apology if this fight doesn't go ahead.
Absolutely. Paul, do you want to touch on something you mentioned a moment ago of Michael Watson? Obviously, a tragedy that happened with him, life-changing injuries. Let's also look at Gerald McClellan. Again, life-changing injuries. All stems from the fathers, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank Sr. They know exactly how dangerous this sport is. They've been involved in that, in the thick of it, and not necessarily on the worst side of it physically, but maybe mentally, because it's affected them for the rest of their lives. Now, they know what boxing can do to people. What should they be advising to their sons?
Just to add on to that, I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. and the Nick Blackwell fight, I was ringside for that, and he obviously ended up with a bleed in the brain as well, and it's been affected since. But mentally, I mean, all three of them, both Nigel, Benn, Chris Eubank, and Junior, have gone through sort of these horrible circumstances. But of all three of them, one that is still continuing to fight, and the other two did continue to fight. The rest of their legacy happened still after those circumstances, albeit absolutely horrible. But I think that the excuse me, as Lyndon was saying, the underlying thing here is that if you've done drugs, you should be out of the sport, because if you're going in there and you're absolutely an enraged monster who is void of pain, I'm not saying that this particular drug that they found in his system is going to turn him into Godzilla. But what I am saying is that if there's an edge that comes from it, if more testosterone is in his system and he does come out absolutely super hyper turbocharged, he's going to bring his A game from the very first bell. And he's obviously, bulked up in muscle, whether it be genuine or fabricated. I have to use that word now because we're obviously in the sort of no man's land in terms of knowing exactly what's in the system. But and that's the whole point, not knowing the cocktail and the effects of it at this point. It seems to be a new one that they've thrown in there. And for that reason alone, it needs to be pulled, and they can go away, do tests, and find out exactly what the ramifications would have been on this. So, for example, saying 3 times the amount of testosterone in your blood will allow you to operate at 150% more than normal. It will give you X amount more stamina. However, it will increase your blood pressure, your heart rate, etc. So there's all sorts of offshots here which an athlete might ignore in terms of physical health, but will embrace in terms of performance on the night. And from the perspective of the British Boxing Board of Control or VADA or anyone else, they're there to do a job, and they're doing the right thing at the moment by sending those vibes out and saying, no, it can't go ahead. And I'm on board with that.
Absolutely. Final question, Lyndon, for yourself. Do you feel if a fighter is caught with a failed drugs test, whether it's knowingly they've taken it or not, should they be banned for life?
I think certain circumstances have to be taken into consideration, but ultimately, yeah, or at least banned for a long period of time, because if they people that get away with it and do damage to their opponents, it's just sort of like, there's always questions. I'm not going to name the boxers, but there's plenty of fighters that we all know are doing something different in their camps. But like you say, I think responsibility needs to be taken, and I just agree with Paul. I'm happy that the British Boxing Board of Control have took this stance, because over the past year, I'm not just on about drug testing, but they've got a lot wrong, and I think this is a big decision that I think they've got right. And I'm a bit, like I said again, I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit. I want to see the fight go ahead, but not under these circumstances. And for those fans that are just get it on, change the authorities, blah blah blah. No, he's tested positive. He needs to take responsibility. I don't want to see the fight go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, we're at time of recording, still unsure on what's going to happen. Will it happen? Will it not? Who knows? We'll probably only find out Saturday about 9 p.m. But boys, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, James.
No worries, mate. Take it easy.